Fear is the enemy. Whatever it is that you're going for, man, go hard. And hold on, never give up. You gotta have that mentality, man. I put in the work, I spent a lot of time on the waiting list. Never complained, I ain't never said shit. Shoot my shot, no fear if I miss. Imagine you chasing a dream that you love, only to find out it wasn't enough. You fall on your face, but you get right back up. And you fall back again, but you get right back up, yeah. That's the way that it's always been. Don't nobody care about the grind but you. Nobody putting in the time but you. Make up your mind who you wanna be. I know who I am, I know what I want. Live by 2 words, mama mentality. And that's word to my mom, word to my pops, word to my little bro. They said make your mistakes, but don't make excuses on why you can't live and learn. On a couple occasions I damn near went broke. I'm chasing this music thing, and I ran out of hope. I threw in the towel, said fuck the hole in the street. I kept on writing and touring. I picked up a job cause I knew it was important. The money I made, I would stash it away just to fund my recordings. And I didn't wanna stop cause I didn't know how. I would lay in my room by myself late at night, and I finally figured it out. I just wanna be the best version of me, make all the music that I wanna make. I don't care what nobody gon' say. You miss all of the shots you don't take. And the answer is no, if you don't ask. If it gets hard, this too shall pass. God is my witness and he got the plan. He got the plan. I put in the work, I spent a lot of time on the waiting list. Never complained, I ain't never said shit. Shoot my shot, no fear if I miss. Imagine you chasing a dream that you love, only to find out it wasn't enough. You fall on your face, but you get right back up. And you fall back again, but you get right back up, yeah. That's the way that it's always been. Don't nobody care about the grind but you. Nobody putting in the time but you. Make up your mind who you wanna be. I know who I am, I know what I want. Live by 2 words, mama mentality. Yeah. Remember, man, you only in competition with yourself. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the process. Pleasure and pain. R.I.P. the greatest. 0824.
Check 1 2, check 1 2. What's going down, everyone? It is another Monday, fun day, and we are going to get into some circle talk. Let me just make sure I'm able to be heard. If you guys can hear me, say what's up, and we'll get into this conversation. Can't hear anything. Can you guys hear me? See some people viewing. Anyways, what I'll do is I'll just keep rolling and I'll wait for the comments to pop on. But thank you guys so much for being here. I'm really excited for this conversation. I've known this brother for a little bit. And when I say that, he is a very intelligent guy that I learned a lot from when I was in school. I did my internship at a place called the Reach Center, downtown Tacoma, and I learned a lot about just him as a person, his love for the children, the youth that we were serving. The Reach Center, for those that don't know, we'll get a little bit deeper into it, but it was a program that was put together for youth and young adults that were experiencing homelessness. And our job was to try and figure out ways to implement some things around them to help them not only get out of homelessness, but to get back into school, find them jobs and things of that nature. So we'll get into that and touch on that as we catch up with my good friend Rodney Robinson. And we're going to talk about after that and what he's been up to since then. Obviously, he's been doing a lot in the world with, not only getting him a new family. We'll talk a little bit about his family. We'll talk about, the new thing that he's working on right now is he is trying to become a Pierce County council member. And so we're going to talk about why he chose to go this route, and just what are some of the things that he would really like to key on, with his drive to do this work. So we'll get into that in a second, but what I want to do is I want to get into my sponsors real quick and thank them. First and foremost, iShotcha.com. Thank you so much for always being a part of everything that I do. If you guys need someone to get your pictures done and get them done right, whether you're going to a wedding and you need to get some wedding photos, you just want headshots because you got a job that you want to do, or you want to do family portraits, obviously, like the ones on my wall right here. All you got to do is holla at Marvin Patterson. He'll get you done and get you done right at a reasonable price. Tell him I sent you, and he'll get you. All right. Next, we're going to go into Intentions Juice and Smoothies Bar. Thank you so much, Marquita Evans, for always being a huge part of not just what I do, but a big part of this community and everything that is happening. She's a positive influence in everyone's world, anything that she does. So you guys can find out a little bit more by going to Intentions Juice and Smoothies Bar. She has three locations. Two of them are already up and running. And she's got a new one that's going to be opening up in downtown Tacoma, 52nd and South Tacoma Ways. The first one. Second one's out there in Seattle. For those that are out there in Seattle in the U District, you can catch her over there. And the third one, like I said, will be downtown Tacoma, off of Market Street down in that area. So thank you so much for my sponsors. Also, I want to say one more thing before I bring Rodney in. I want to give a huge shout out to a new sponsor that I've currently decided to partner up with starting this week. My good friend Theo Hall, and musicdose.com. So if you guys want to check out Music Dose, all you do have to do is look it up on YouTube. You can go on Insta, musicdose.com, and find out a little bit more about Music Dose. It's an amazing platform where it's playing local music, music out in the industry, and giving me and people like myself a platform, a place to showcase what I'm doing and what they're doing in the community. So thank you again, Theo, for that opportunity. Also, I am a proud sponsor for Juneteenth 2024. So I will be doing some, interviews and talking to people at Juneteenth this year. Make sure you guys, June 19th, make sure you guys show up to the event. It's going to be an amazing event. Thank you so much, JD Davis, for the opportunity to be a part of that. And I'm excited for more things coming on this year. So it's been a great year. So thank you to everybody that's continued to be a part of Circle Talk. So without further ado, let's bring in our guest for today, Mr. Rodney Robinson. Let's go. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Why do you look so short? And we're gonna start there. Why do you look so short? 'Cause-
I do this. I do this to compensate for my in person stature. You know what I mean. I
yeah,
often in the era of Zoom, I keep hearing, "Man, you're much taller than I thought you were." So
yes.
try to make myself look little on screen.
Trying to look my height on screen, huh?
They said
So
nothing's
what's
wrong
up,
with
man?
that.
How you been though, man? How you really been?
No, I've been really well. You know, it's been an interesting time period. You know, like you said, you and I first met, man, what, 10, 12 years ago, maybe
12
more than
years ago.
that. Yeah. Yeah. So in that time, just, kind of forging ahead, continuing to stick to what's important, trying to represent for our young people, especially here in Pierce County.
Yeah,
And just making sure that folks know that they are the next generation. And if we don't take care of them now, when they get to be adults, or not when, or when as they continue their march to adulthood, um, you know, it can be a situation like this is how we ensure a high quality of life for everyone in the future. I think is by focusing on our young adults and making sure they have the type of resources that they need so that they can be successful and self-sufficient.
absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about where we first started, where we met, and just your job description and what you kind of was a part of when we first met at the Reach Center. Talk to the people about that.
Yeah, so when we first met, I was at the Reach Center and I was the lead case manager for a brand new program called Housing for Success. And so the purpose of Housing for Success was it was a really innovative approach to housing young people in our community. It was a collaborative between quite a few different agencies, the city, the county, all trying to find new and innovative ways to house young people. And so my job was I was the first paid employee of the program, and so I had the pleasure of kind of setting up a lot of the ways we did business, right? So the process of welcoming young people into the programming and to the program, determining where they'd stay, assigning case managers. I also got to hire and coach up the case managers and the AmeriCorps volunteers and kind of interface with the county and the city to ensure our objectives were met. So really kind of like a low key management position at that place at Housing for Success. And I was really proud to be a part of that work because that was the first time in our community that we decided we needed a concerted effort when approaching young adult homelessness. And so yeah, it was a great time. It was great to like interface. And like I said, I had an opportunity to work with the AmeriCorps volunteers and interns,
Yeah,
and the cool thing about that was kind of coaching my passion and stoking their fire, so that we can have people continuously do this work, right? Because
yeah.
as we know, many hands makes for light work. So
Absolutely. I never talked to you about it before, but after I finished with my internship, I don't think I even talked to you about it, but I went back and I applied for a position at the Reach Center just because of watching the way that you carried yourself and the way that you were working with not just the kids that were coming into the community organization, but how you were dealing with, the people that were working right next to you, you know what I'm
mm,
saying? And so I just wanted to just let you know I appreciate you for everything that you showed me, and you groomed me into wanting to be a part of everything that was happening there. And so yeah, I just wanted to give you your props for that, man. It was such an amazing opportunity for me to work beside someone of your stature and your intelligence, and just your willingness to want to do more in everything that you did in that opportunity. So thank you for that, man. For sure, for sure.
now I really appreciate that because I think it's I can think of your time there, and you had an impact on the young people too because I think it was important for them to see someone a little bit, we'll call it advanced in age and compared to a 20-year-old who was
Yeah,
who was saying, you know what, I can acknowledge, um, to get to where I want to be, I've got to continuously invest in myself. So I think it was important for them to see like adult learners. It's always important for our population to see a black man reach back and say, I care. I'm from this community. I'm willing to reinvest not only my time and my energy, but also my resources into this community. And so I've kind of watched your journey, and I know that you worked in, like the Rainier School and continue
yeah,
to do work with young people. So I'm encouraged by that. And I'm glad that I had a small part to play, if any, in that and continuing your passion as you kind of continue to reach out to this generation because it's incredibly important. It's going to take all of us.
absolutely, absolutely, for sure. So let's talk about after the Reach Center. What did you end up getting into afterwards? Where did you end up venturing to? What are you doing today? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So after I left the Reach Center, I had an opportunity to I did a little work in King County. That was not exceptionally fulfilling. Really, just because it was a really long commute, and then B, it wasn't our community, right? So I
Right.
had an opportunity to come back. I started. I worked at MDC for about 5 years, where I was the adult education and employment manager. So kind of trying to continue on that similar vein of work that I was doing with Housing for Success.
Yeah.
And my purview was supporting the adult education program, so making sure that folks have funding to go to school and they could also resolve student loan debt so they could continue their education. I also supervise programs like the entrepreneur program, which is exceptionally important to me and close to my heart. And then I also and some other different programming there, and also ensuring that we were getting folks hired. And one of the things I'm excited about when I was there was I was able to partner with Fred Myers and create a hiring a couple different hiring events, and one of the hiring events we were able to get 118 people jobs in one day,
Wow.
working for Fred Meyer. So that was dope. And the cool thing was it wasn't just customer service. Like we got some people moved into the management training program. We got some folks hooked up with like the driving and the delivery. So that was an incredibly important time. And then after I left there, I worked for an organization called Treehouse. And Treehouse is an organization that provides educational support for youth impacted by the foster care system. And so my job there, I was a regional director, and my job was to help spread programming and create partnerships with local school districts to bring in supportive services from Treehouse. And so my area of responsibility was everything south of Federal Way, west of the mountains, and north of Vancouver and north. So I was there for how long was I there? I was there for about 6 years and had the opportunity to bring programming to about 7 or 8 different communities and really support the statewide expansion of that program. Created a lot of good connections, and I continue that work. And so now I am the director for the campaign to prevent and end youth and young adult homelessness in Pierce County. And that's a position that's kind of focused on systems level advocacy and making sure that the system is being as responsive and moving as efficiently as possible to meet the needs of our young people here in our community, and also look at how we can kind of foster collaboration between service providers and also try to get new resources, especially financial resources, into our community that we can apply to our young people. Along the way, me, I love my community boards and organizations. So recently I just stepped down as the chair of the Pierce County Continuum of Care. And the Continuum of Care is another group that's focused primarily on ensuring that we are getting the most housing money possible from the Housing and Urban Development Department, HUD, from the federal government. I also am the current chair of the Office of Homeless Youth Advisory Committee. So interfacing with Office of Homeless Youth, which is from the governor's office statewide, to make sure that we have resources and those resources are informed by the needs of young people. And then I also, in 2018, I started my own consultation business, Outside Perspective LLC. And so I work with organizations and do meeting facilitation. I also do some small business consultation or small business coaching and strategic planning. So yeah. And then about 12 years ago, I think right as we were meeting, I started my family, got married, and now I have a beautiful wife and 2 lovely kids who are, in the Tacoma public school system, and they're thriving. So
That
yeah,
sounds
just trying to grow and elevate. Oh,
so.
and then to your point, I'm also currently I'm running for Pierce County Council, District 4, so to replace Ryan Mello.
Absolutely. Busy. That was
Yeah,
a whole lot. I'm gonna chop it up a little bit.
yeah,
And
definitely.
I'm gonna pick a couple pieces off. I want to start off by, just where did your heart for the youth and homelessness, where did that all start for you at? I mean, because a lot of people have something that kind of helped them get to a place where, you know what, this is what I truly want to do with myself.
Yeah.
Where did this come from for you?
For me, it's kind of twofold, right? Like when I was young and growing up here in Pierce County, I had the opportunity to really have community surrounding me and wrapped around me, right? And so, I as you can tell, like I'm very used to staying busy, right? So I had like a thriving church community. So I was knee deep in church and all those activities. I had things like Boy Scouts. I had things like just a whole host of activities
Yeah.
uh that I could get into. And the thing that I saw is when we pay attention, right? When we invest in the self-esteem of a youngster, that gives them the opportunity to build that resilience, because things aren't going to be easy, right? No human being walking this earth, if they're honest with themselves, can say, hey, my life is nothing but cupcakes and roses, right?
Right.
And so then when I had an opportunity to leave and I went to school down south, was left to my own devices, I know how quickly one or two decisions can put you in a place where, it's so hard to climb out of some of those holes we create for ourselves. And really, you just need the access to information. And sometimes it's just a person who's willing to believe in you, keep it real with you, but also encourage you to grow. And then when I had the opportunity to come back to the community, I originally started in human services. Well, let me take a step back. So I worked in, when I was in school in Baton Rouge, I had an opportunity to work in the school system with kids, right? And one of my placements there as a paraprofessional is I worked with young adults who had behavioral disabilities, right? And like these are the ones that they say, yo, these kids are too bad to learn. And just running into like, I remember, without giving too much information, there was a young man, he was 13 years old and he was in the 5th grade still, right? And they had just failed him continuously. And the thing was, well, he's just too bad. We can't keep him in the classroom. He's so disruptive. And I got an opportunity to like know him as a person and challenge him for his behavior. I was like, how much is this real and authentic, and how much of this can you change? Like, are you just trying to live into a role that people are putting onto you, right? And really just having that micro interaction with young people and seeing like, it doesn't change, it doesn't take a whole lot to change their trajectory. And then when I got back to Washington and I started my career in human services, the first job I had was as an family emergency housing case manager. And so I would work with these families, and there a lot of times there was multi-generational family units. And I would see that the adults were kind of perpetrating a path that had been laid upon them, right? Like people told them, hey, you're only going to be able to do this. This is where you got to focus your attention. And no one ever challenged them to grow and dream for themselves. And so, it was a vicious cycle of socioeconomic poverty, lack of information and access to information. And I saw how that impacted the kids, right? The kids were so depressed, and they didn't have that vital energy that we, see from our young people. And so I said, man, not the adults don't need the same level of critical care, but for me, I was drawn to those young people because I was like, a moment of critical intervention can set a whole different trajectory for these young people. And so really, I just tried to invest in and learn more about their experiences. And we growing up in the 80s and the 90s, yeah, there was a whole lot for us to get into, but you had to be present to get into it, right? And then learning what some of these young people were experiencing, one of the largest causes of homelessness, or one of the root causes of homelessness, are like I met young people who identified as LGBTQI, and their parents were like, no, not in this house. And they kicked them out, smooth to the curb, didn't give them any type of resources. I met a young man whose family actually put him in conversion therapy. And that was like the first time that I'd heard about conversion therapy. And they, and I apologize if this offends, but they tried to pray the gay out of him, right? And like, you got to let people be people, and then, I can remember meeting a young lady who had been sexually trafficked up and down the I-5 corridor, and just having conversations with her and say, yo, really, you never had a chance to be successful based on your life situations and circumstances. I met a young man who had severe ADHD, and traditional school just did not work for him. But the dude was a genius. He could fix anything electronic you put in front of him from an innate ability, but nobody was willing to kind of look past, some of the situations that had put him in homelessness. And I was like, well, the more we learn about young people, the better we can serve them. And then, seeing the idea of young people activating their own advocacy and saying, "Yo, I'm prepared to stand up and speak for myself and tell folks what happened." But then what I also saw on the flip side is when you look at systems providers or the adults in the system, they didn't, in my opinion, not everybody treated them with the dignity that they deserved, right? Like it was very exploitative. It was, you know, come to our breakfast, talk about how terrible your life was, how we made your life better, and then we're gonna hook you up with this program, and that's that goes against the spirit of trying to be of service, right? And so I just thought that It starts with one person prepared and also strong enough to say, yeah, I'm gonna do things a little bit different. And then I felt like, it was my calling to continue to advance. And then I got the opportunity as I position myself to influence folks like yourself, right? Like the next wave of folks who are going to work directly with young people. And, they could come in and the standard could be like, let me be real with this young person, but let me also acknowledge the dignity and the resilience that they have for their situation. Let me also listen to them as they tell me what they really need. I think it's this based on my experiences, but they're saying it's this. And so, how can I learn from, but also give them some guidance, because we all need someone who's got a little bit more knowledge to be like, hey, youngster, like, you could do it that way. It's going to be hard. It might not be as successful as you hope. Let me try to give you some shortcuts. So that's kind of what started that.
It's crazy you said that. Sometimes they just need to be heard. Sometimes, we as parents would rather just say, "You are the kid, I'm the adult, you listen to me. Nothing that you have to say is going to change what I am thinking." And sometimes that little bit of a response will lead a kid totally somewhere else,
Right.
and all they really wanted was just to be heard, you know what I'm saying? And be acknowledged that, they have an idea, even if it's not the right idea. At least that acknowledgement will, at least keep them somewhat focused and listening to, and, kind of teaming up to kind of find the a common ground, with their situations. There was a couple of those situations that you were bringing up, different storylines that I remember us kind of going through when we was going through the Reach program. Do you
Mhm.
remember dealing with any I guess pushback from the people you worked with because of the fact that you were coming in as the first paid person, and you were of color? Do you remember ever dealing with any pushback from anyone? I mean,
Yeah, I think in my career, representation has been super important, right? Like my thing was, when I show up in a space, I want to be as authentic as possible, right? Because it doesn't do anybody any favors if I come in there and put on a facade. Like, for the young people who know that I'm in there speaking on their behalf, you know how it is. Young people label you corny; they're not listening to you anymore.
right,
And then when it came to leadership and stakeholders, I'm a person who's very confident in myself and confident in my abilities, and so I'm not afraid to push the envelope and say, "Yo, we got to do it this way."
right.
And to your point, it's like so much of what transpires in Washington is kind of the subliminal. So there was nobody actively who was like, "Who's this black man telling me what to do?" You know what I mean? I think it
Kind of
was
feeling
more like,
it.
yeah, yeah. It was kind of how the game goes when you're in a professional environment. I think it was more so uh, folks tried to challenge me, and then they had to understand, like, I'm not that guy. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit back and not do what I think is right, because it's bringing a little bit of heat.
Yes.
So, you know, to answer that question, I don't think there was any. I didn't experience anything active. And then the other thing was, to be quite honest, like, even before Housing for Success launched, like, I was specifically courted for this role, because I had made it my purpose to, people knew what I was about, right? Like, I had the bona fide. So, it wasn't like somebody was just talking out the side of their neck. So, and then I had really strong interpersonal relationships with, if you had a problem, I probably knew the person who was your boss, or who was the person who could tell you to stop having a problem. And they thought fairly highly of me. So, there were definitely some interpersonal challenges there, but I don't think it necessarily had. I like to think that it didn't have to do with race per se. It was more just my willingness to push and develop and to be authentic. One of the
Yes.
things that I'm very proud of was I like to think that me being myself allow, our volunteers, people like yourself, to come in there and be authentic. It also gave our staff an opportunity to be real and authentic, because we had a different cast of characters there.
Yes.
And then it also allowed for the young people to be honest and free in their experience as well. So, um, but yeah, it
Go ahead.
it,
Finish.
it forged the it it forged the importance of representation in everything that I do. So I make sure that when I'm in these different spaces, because from that time to this time, like the rooms have just gotten bigger, right? And
Yes. Yes.
while the rooms have gotten bigger, I'm still usually the only black man there, or one of very
Yeah.
few. So it's important to stay real and authentic. And if you see me on a Saturday, it's the same cat you saw on Monday at work. So
Yeah. So let me throw this at you now. I'm a student that is now working at the Reach Center for trying to provide myself an opportunity to stay away from homelessness. This is kind of part of my program. Is
mm,
I'm working at the Reach Center to um, basically get funds to pay for my apartment that I'm living in.
mm,
And I'm watching you, and I'm taking in your stature, the way that you carry yourself, and I want to be somewhat like you. But I'm 16 years old. I'm watching everything that you're doing. I'm going to these meetings because remember sometimes they would bring the youth to some
mm,
of these main meetings, and I'm seeing the pushback from specific people. What are you going to say to me to make me feel like it's going to be okay? You will be able to handle these situations and come out on top when it comes to watching you deal with the situations that you're dealing with from these people that are supposed to be working in the circle to do the right thing for all these youth and young adults that are coming in, but
mm,
also pushing back because of whatever reason it may be. What are you
mm.
telling these youth?
That's a great question. I think part of it is you can only be happy with you if you're you. You know what I mean? So regardless of the outcome, if I walk away and I don't feel like I've showed up as my authentic self, I'm gonna feel like I left something on the table.
Mhm.
And I gotta travel with me wherever I go. You gotta be all right with yourself. That's the number one thing. The second thing is the proof is in the pudding, right? Like
Yeah.
I think like when young people got to participate in those meetings and they saw the way that I was activated, it's like grandma said, like, we gonna get some straightening. You know what I mean? Like we didn't leave an argument and walk away and then I'm passively aggressively, complaining about outcomes or what transpired from the meeting. Like if we got a problem, we're gonna settle that right there in the meeting, right? We're gonna be respectful. We're gonna work
Yeah.
uh inside of the system as much as possible. But the one thing that will happen is when we walk out of there, we all gonna be straight. And and I think the other good point of that is like young people. It's one thing to tell them, but it's another thing to be authentic. In my experience, young people gravitate. It's like the old adage says, "Game recognize game," and people know if you're being authentic with the way that you engage them, with the way that you engage others, because the young people who got to see me work, like they saw me challenge in those spaces, but then they also got to see me be very real and authentic with them in our one-on-one meetings. But then they also got to see, when I worked with my staff, we wasn't gonna let stuff slide. And if I felt like, and not to be like all authoritarian, like I was firing people or anything, but it was definitely those moments of instruction and correction. Hey, let's not use that language. Let's, think about this. We don't know where this young person's coming from. And then the other thing I think was, and this goes back to being authentic, but it's investing in having the knowledge. So when you speak, you don't just come from a place of passion. Like passion is incredibly important, but you also need to have some facts and figures to back you up, right? So, and being responsive to the young people. Like, when we go back to some of those stories that we talked about initially, like the young lady who was sexually trafficked, I had
Yeah.
no idea. I didn't know about sexual trafficking. My staff didn't know about sexual trafficking. So we went and we partnered with what is this, coalition to end sexual trafficking. We got training, we brought experts in, we changed our policies so that our policies matched our learning. When I learned about conversion therapy, I never experienced that before. One of the other things that was new to me was the transgender experience. I
Right.
partnered with Oasis Youth Center. We got training, we brought folks in, and then that led me to volunteering with Oasis Youth Center. I
Yeah.
still have great relationships and partnerships that were built in there because I wanted to know. I want to be authentic in my engagement. I want to treat you as the person that you want to be treated on. And I can acknowledge that while I don't know everything, I'm willing to go and find where I can get that information. And so it's not just like one thing that has a young person believe in you. It's all those things. And then the other thing, which I think people don't give enough credit for, is you got to be prepared. Like, we're not bigger than the young person, right? So when the assistance that we've offered them is gone, like, you got to let them young people cook. I to this day run across young people that have been in my housing program, or I've worked with or supervised the person who's done their case management. To this day, I run into those young people, and unless they acknowledge me, I let them push on through. You know what I mean? No one wants to be reminded of some of the most traumatic experiences that they've had in their life. So you got to let young people cook. And also being said, you also have to be an adult. You know what I mean? We can't be in there. I can't. I'm 43 years old. I can't be in there trying to do the same things you trying to do. Like, we're in
Right.
different places in the life. But what I can say is I did used to be a young knucklehead like you, and believe any trouble you got in, I could probably top twofold. You know what I'm saying? But there was a pathway to quote unquote respectability. You know what I mean? And so it was really, you can represent with your words and you can also represent with your actions. So it was showing that I was, to be honest, just being thorough, just being as thorough as possible. So when you say something, someone can be like, all right, I believe you. You're not just capping. Like, I understand that you have shown that you about what you're talking about.
Absolutely. So let's talk about just moving into um, the Pierce County Council District 4. Let's talk about where did your your passion for this, where did that come from, and what are you trying to accomplish by being in this role? Let's talk about it.
Nah, that's another good question. I've always been civic minded. When I was in high school, I did the ASB stuff, did student government. When I was senior class president or ASB president, Henry Foss class of '99 represent. I did that for a semester, and I'm real with it. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I was a student president and got impeached in my second semester because I decided, I wanted to have fun, and that fun kind of cost me that position. But my grandfather was really the one who said, he's the one who instilled in me, like, black people have worked tremendously hard in this country just for the ability to vote. And so, I was always taught and led that you have to vote, right? Like, you have to engage in the political process. And not everyone desires to have a deep ingrained participation with the political process. But that being said, it affects everyone we know. And so I've always been one of those people, like, I'm not going to say it if I'm not prepared to put in the effort to change it. And so what I saw during, because in my professional responsibilities, I have quite a bit of dealings with the county and city and other governmental entities. And so the thing that I saw where I felt like I could be of service and be an added benefit was like the willingness to listen to Joe Schmo, the average citizen. Because there is politics can be very mystifying, right? Like, you feel like politicians are born and groomed. They're not just average everyday citizens who say, you know what, I see where I can have some impact, or there's some things that I'd like to see are different. And so, I'm trying to set that tone for folks, because even if, and we're not going to put this into the atmosphere, because I got in it to win it. But even if I don't win, I hope that I demonstrate to, folks like yourself, other people who are like, you know what, that, that brother gave it a go. Let me try. Let me see what I can do. And where I look at it, of course, some of the cornerstones of my constituency will be, like the homelessness problem that we're experiencing. It's not monolithic. It's not the same for every person. But it would be great to have someone who's willing to listen to the folks who are experiencing homelessness and hear what are some of those solutions. It's not a one shoe fits all approach, and especially making sure that young people can see themselves in the process. How great is it going to be for a young person to say, oh, I know that cat. That was a cat who came to the youth advisory board meeting and was listening and actually took notes. And then he came back and said, yo, here's an opportunity to participate further and interface in the government. And once he saw that, because our young people are becoming incredibly disenfranchised with the political process, and so I think there's an opportunity to show them, like, yo, you as a real average Joe Schmo citizen can affect policy and how stuff is done in our community. My whole thing is the quality of life for Pierce County. We've seen post-COVID, we've seen programming be artificially inflated by some of this COVID money, and then that's led to upheaval in the system because that was not sustainable money. So we need somebody who's prepared to forecast and look further out. We also need somebody who's prepared to listen and have conversations and has an eye to innovation and who's not afraid to say, hey, if this is not working, let's do it differently. And not only let's do it differently, let's go and find a place where it did work and have conversations with those people. I'm also thinking about the cost of living in Pierce County. I bought a house just 6 short years ago, and now, there are people who are making 6 figures and can't afford to live in the community that they've grown up in. I remember, I remember Pierce County, Tacoma specifically, and other areas, like it was that true sense of community, and a lot of it was because folks. I believe that home ownership engages that civic pride. You're more willing to stand up. But there are other opportunities where people can influence the political process. Some of the boards that I mentioned. I was on the Birth to 25 board, and the Birth to 25 board was stood up by a council member who said, hey, we have this money coming into our community. What if that money was committed to improving the lives of folks birth to 25 in a continuous manner? What does it look like? Can we offset childcare costs? What are some of the things that we can do with this money to make sure that people are living right? So I think like those are the opportunities. So what I want to do is I want to give folks someone who's accessible, someone who is homegrown and understands their experiences and also share some of the same fears that they do, but who is also prepared to step into the gap and say, because let's keep it real, like it in our ethnic experiences, we kind of taught to stay low and out the way, right? Like, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and sometimes you don't want that grease. So someone's got to be prepared to step up and have those conversations and represent at those tables. And I would be glad and I would be incredibly proud if folks in Washington and Pierce County and District 4, if they decided, hey, we feel like Rodney's kind of walking the walk. He's did the work. He's homegrown. Let's support him. So,
absolutely, man. Well, that was a good pitch. I mean, you got me. You already knew you had my vote as it was, but man, so what is how can somebody get in contact with you if they want to hear a little bit more about what you have going on, what you're into, and get some direction on just their voting and whatnot. How do they get
definitely.
in contact with you?
So, thanks for asking that question. So, I have a website, of course, because you got to have a piece of the web. So, you
Yep.
can go to electrodneyrobinson.com. There, you can kind of see my bio, my profile. You can email, get in contact. You can also support. The thing that I'm learning is you got to have bread to run. So those donations are very welcome. And I think that they show the organic support from the community, right? Like I'm really looking for organizations that want to support the cause and feel like, I'm the candidate to help lead that. But it's also about the organic support. It's about folks who say, I might not have $1,000 to give, but I like what that brother's about. I got $25 for him, so that helps. So you can go to my website, electrodneyrobinson.com. Keep up to date. Pretty soon I'll be publishing my social media. I'm from the old school, so I'm like, I don't really post. You got to catch me in traffic. But we're gonna get that up and moving. I want folks to, even for those who can't financially support, volunteer. Volunteers are gonna be incredibly important as I'm knocking on doors and trying to spread the good word. So folks who want to support that way. For those who say, hey, this man knows what he's doing on the business side, you can visit my consulting website at outsideperspectivellc.com. Tap in and see if some of the services I provide are services you need. And yeah, you can always, if you see the tall guy with the gray beard in traffic, and say, hey, let's talk a minute. And if I'm in the mood, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I believe in we all have time and spaces, you know what I'm saying, where sometimes you just gotta lay low, you tuck your cap down.
Yeah.
But if we're in public, we'll definitely engage. And then I'm in the process. I love that you talked about intentions. They're a wonderful supporter of the campaign, endorser, and we're currently planning a voter engagement event that will be held at Intentions. And
Oh,
when I get everything locked in, I'll send that to you so you can share that with your supporters as well. We love for people to come out and let's have conversations. I'm not saying I'm an expert and I'm gonna be able to count your city ordinances and all of that, but what I will be able to do is listen and let's talk about it and let's hear the theory of your complaints. Because you know when you think about Pierce County Council, the last black man to serve on city council was Harold Moss, and like that was in the, I
shout
don't
out.
want to misquote it, but that was like 70s, 80s, right? And
Long time.
so
Long time
yeah,
ago.
right. And I would say look up the county council and see, do you feel that they represent your slice of the community? So
Absolutely.
yeah, but yeah,
So
they can hit me on the
quick,
website.
really quick, for everybody that's watching, if you guys have any questions for Rodney before we get off, we got about 10, 12 minutes and then we're going to close up shop. But if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I got a couple more questions for you, Rodney, and then we'll open up the floor. But
So
let's jump into how important is your family and everything that you do.
they're the backbone. You know what I mean? Because they're the island in the storm. Um, it kind of goes back to that community, right? Like the family is the community that you chose and created. So, it's good to know that I can come back home and the wife is incredibly supportive, because you can't do the type of things that I'm trying to achieve or currently achieving without great support at the home front. The kids give me vital energy. One of the things that kind of guides my steps, and you might be similar, is like, do my kids think I'm cool? And not cool in the way like, oh, dad's got a fly ride and does all those things, but like, when my son he's 20, I want him to, or when he's 20, he's 10 now, but when he's 20, I want him to be able to look back and be like, damn, my dad was getting to it. Like I didn't, he might not understand it now, but when he goes back, he's like, my dad owned a business. He was a mover and a shaker. He was a councilman. Like those are incredibly important things to me, so they are my quiet in the storm because I can always come back here and I'm the someone shared this with me. They said they love to I'm gonna mess up their quote, but they were like, they basically said their favorite time, and I can agree with this, is when we're all in the house but in separate spaces. You know what I mean? Just knowing that everybody's cared for, they're comfortable, and they have a place to be safe and sound is incredibly important to me. So
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanna ask you something because I always want to get a perspective of here versus down south. All my family's in Louisiana, and
mhm.
since you brought that up, Marvin's actually from Louisiana too. If he's still watching, shout out to Marvin.
Wow.
Talk about just the cultural. Was it a cultural shock for you when because I know you went to school to what, A&M? Was it A&M? Where'd you go to school at?
Southern University
I apologize.
in
My bad.
Baton Rouge.
So talk about the cultural difference, if there was, from going to Foss High School here in Tacoma, growing up in Tacoma, Washington, or in this area versus when you got down there and you was in school, down in Louisiana?
Yeah, no, it was a huge, huge culture shock. So as ever, here African Americans make up, I think, of like 3 to 5% of the total population in Pierce County, right? So like we out here, but we're not necessarily like a deeply cohesive group. And so when I was growing up, I was fortunate again to be wrapped in people who wrapped around, had my arms or had was wrapped around by folks who were. It was important to help them, or help you build your identity and have self-worth, right? So like I went to Bethlehem Baptist Church, and under the auspicious leadership of Dr. Rose. And Dr. Rose was all about the black economy. He was about like, yeah, we need to have businesses, we need to support those businesses, we need to share our resources. So that's kind of what helped lead to my interest in entrepreneurship and supporting business owners of color. And then I also got to participate in things like the African American Heritage Pageant that was put on by, some ladies from my high school. That was an opportunity to receive scholarship money from Omega Psi Phi. I remember was the one who donated the money. So it was great to learn of like these black organizations. So, here we always have a tether to the South because, no black person is directly from Washington, right? Like, your parents, your grandparents, somebody came up here, and usually it was armed forces or other opportunities that led them up here. So it was interesting to then go down south and see how, here in Washington and Pierce County specifically, it's a mixing pot. Everybody kind of mixes in. You maintain a level of self-identity or cultural identity, but it's really a mix. You know what I mean? You can go and kick it with your Samoan partner, and then you can go hang out with the Mexican homie, right? You can go and have pho, and then you can go and have, lumpia. You can do all of those things in one spot.
Yeah.
When I went down south, especially in Louisiana, it was crazy because you had to look for white people, right? Like it was very much like there were two separate sides of town, and not in a way that was, and people had a lot of pride in that. So it wasn't a bad thing per se, but it was interesting going to HBCU, and I encourage every young person who has the opportunity to go to a HBCU because it really allows you to dig into your identity and the genesis of your people. You know what I mean? So, and I met the children of NBA and NFL stars. I met folks whose parents were millionaires. I also met people who were in school because they caught a charge and it was either school or jail. You know what I mean? So you see the whole continuum, and you get to really experience that black people don't have a monolithic experience. Like we are diverse and beautiful, and there's a wide tapestry of people and tones and experiences. So that was dope. It really gives you a different sense of pride in yourself, to know what you can achieve. That being said, when it was time for me to like fully launch and get to what I wanted to do and live my dreams and aspirations, I was like, I'm gonna take it back to the crib because the opportunities are different here. We live in a place that we have had a black mayor for 2 consecutive terms, and one of those black women mayors is now representing us at the federal level, right? And so, where else do you see that at? So it was good to come back and see that the opportunities were here, and yeah. So that was the biggest shift. It's just like the sense of going down there. It gives you a sense of self-reliance, a sense of community that is different from up here.
Yes, absolutely. I would probably say the same thing. Um, so what we're gonna do is I got a question from shout out to Steve. Appreciate you for coming on, Steve, and hanging out with us. He had a question for you. I'm gonna go ahead and put it up so you can see it.
So,
Uh, he said he feels like there's too much waste in city funding programs to help youth. How would you change this?
well, I think that's an interesting question, right? Because part of the hot button word is what is wasted. Because I think one of the things that uh, I consider part of my platform is moving to a more efficient use of resources, right? And so one of the things that our young people are asking for is they want service providers that have a shared sense of identity with them. And that, that can look like, it can be that they look like them. It could be that they feel like they come from similar places. It could be that they share a sexual orientation or identity with them, right? And so what I think we can look at from a council's perspective are how are we courting these businesses to come in, these organizations to come in and do business in Pierce County, because right now it can be kind of prohibitive, from the way that they get reimbursed for funds, the level of technical assistance when dealing with contracts. That's super important. And so sometimes when we think about waste, it's the visible waste, and it's things that you hear about as opposed to are actually happening, because I would challenge that we don't actually have enough resources for youth and young adult housing. A lot of times, what we do is we ask for young adults to be kind of grouped into the adult system, and that's not fair because we know, think about your mind at 22 versus your mind at 32 or 42. You're having different levels, like you can comprehend things at a very different level.
Right.
So I would say it's not about waste, it's more about efficiency, because we need more money in this community, especially for homelessness and young adult homelessness. So my answer to that question is to make sure that the money that we do have is being efficiently processed and it's funneled to the young people. Because I think a lot of, and I hear this often, and it's a double-edged sword, right? Because as a professional who's one of my paychecks comes from the human services, a lot of times people say, well, we've got executives and program people and they're making all this money, but we still have this huge problem with young adult, or with homelessness. The professionals are not making a lot of money. I can tell you we're not getting rich doing this good work. And the other thing is, again, it goes back to how are we ensuring that there is a program, a template, a strategy to make sure that we're getting the biggest return on investment for the money that we are spending in the youth and young adult homelessness. And the ultimate return on investment is when we are, as a community, we have a system that's built to be responsive. So a young person who does unfortunately experience homelessness, that experience can be short and one time. Because I'm here to tell you, Steve, I don't know you personally and I appreciate your question, but I'm sure if you think back on your life, you can think about when times got tougher, stuff got a little bit lean. And
Mhm.
that's kind of the misconception about homelessness, right? Like, all of us are about 3 paychecks away from experiencing homelessness or a catastrophic situation. Homelessness is something you deal with. It's not who you are. And so I think it's important to consider that. But to your point, like, I don't want to dance around that. It's about moving efficiently, because I can guarantee you we do not have enough money to meet the needs of the young people. That being said, we can definitely be moving more efficiently in how we spend those dollars. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Steve, for the question. Amazing. That was an interesting question, but very, very, very good one at the same time. Um, Steve Garza, by the way, is for those that don't know Steve, y'all need to get to know him. He's the executive director for the DMAC Foundation. It's a grassroots foundation that was originated last year, after the passing of his son,
Oh,
due to
condolences for your
drunk
loss.
driving. They have put together an amazing foundation to try and give back and do exactly what we're doing here, is trying to find different ways to deal with situations that our youth and young adults are going to be going through. And they created this really cool thing that they're doing over there at Gonzaga, is where her- their son went to school at, where it's called a Get Home Safe program. Um, I'm not going to get deep into it, but it's basically a program for youth and young adults to get home safe from wherever they're at. If they're out going to be out drinking or hanging out, and liquor's going to be involved, you can call this organization or this foundation, and they will come and pick you up and take you home safe. That way, you're not driving and ending up in car wrecks or ended up, you know, even worse. So Shout out to the DMAC Foundation, Steve and Brooke, and their whole family for the amazing work that they're doing. So just wanted to put that out there real quick. Um, but Rodney, this has been a good conversation, man.
Yeah, I appreciate
Like,
that.
we just touched the surface.
Yeah, you can invite me back, especially when I win. You know what I mean? Hopefully, we can
Yeah,
continue on.
for sure. So this is my last question, and then we're gonna close up shop, you guys. But how big is your faith right now? How big is faith to you?
Right now, it's funny that you asked me that because life happens to us all, and if you don't have faith, I don't begrudge anybody for their belief system. You know what I mean? But I just know that life is daunting, and sometimes you just you need a reason to say, you know what, it's gonna work out. And faith to me, I just think about a quote, and it's things are gonna work out, and if they haven't, or how's it go? Things will always work out, and if they haven't worked out, then the problem's not done, and that's kind of what faith is, right? Faith is just saying, yo, eventually, I'm gonna find a pathway through this, and it's somebody to walk with you. It's somebody for at your most vulnerable moments that you can share with. And, I'm sure you can attest to this as Black men. We don't get a whole lot of, culturally, it is not, um, what's the best way to say it? It's not necessarily super common for us to express our emotions.
Yeah,
And, faith allows you to feel the feels in your own time. A lot of times we feel the added societal pressure to be strong and to be, stalwart leaders of our families and communities. And sometimes you're like, man, this stuff is rough. I need somebody to lean on. And that's what faith is. Faith is the opportunity to lead or to lean on something and continue to not continue to borrow strength when yours might wean or when yours might need a little bit of a boost. You know
a
what I
little
mean?
bit of a boost. Absolutely. So, man, I'm not gonna ask you no more questions because they just keep coming. Every time you say something, I got another question for you. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and end and conclude, but we are gonna do this again really, really soon.
Dope.
I think we should definitely have a part two, especially like you said, after you win, then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about just you and the family because we didn't really dig deep into the family, and I think that's always an important thing for me is to know just how you operate versus how you were grown up, and
Mm.
just compare the two. And so we'll get into that next time. But do you have any questions for me before we go? Because I always got to ask that at the end of the day.
No, I just want to say I appreciate you making space for me, but then also for other folks. I think that it's critically important that we demystify things and everything, right? Like I always say that access to information is probably not to get all mad deep, but like that's when John Lynch penned the Lynch letters, that's basically what he said. He's like, yeah, we can keep people in prison if we just keep them away from the information. And so inviting people on, inspiring people not only with your own path, but then with your partners, talking about entrepreneurship, talking about folks creating foundations, letting people ask direct questions and get specific answers, I think is wildly important. So, I just want to congratulate you on your success, and then also thank you again for having me on.
Appreciate you, man. Anytime. We'll do it again soon. We need to catch up and go out and have a little something to eat or something,
Yeah,
and just catch up like old times and just chop it.
yeah,
So we'll
I'm
do that
with
in
it.
the future for sure. But guys, thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate you guys sitting down and be a part of this conversation today. We'll be back on Saturday with a young lady that is doing music. She's a singer, songwriter, and she's originally from here, but she's living and basically just doing her own thing out in Asia, China, just touring the world. And we're gonna
So,
just catch up with her and see what she's up to. Miss Caitlin Cartier is going to be here on Saturday. And then 2 days later, we're going to be with Threat Brown. Anybody know Threat Brown? He's a young brother from here and doing amazing work with the kids as well. So we're going to catch up with him on Monday. So Saturday, Caitlin Cartier. Monday, Threat Brown. Make sure you guys tap in, tune in, like, share, go to our YouTube channel. Please follow us. We're going to continue to elevate and talk about good people doing great things in our community. So thank you again, Rodney. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all for being a part of this. We will see you guys Saturday. Take care.
Bye,
Peace.
everyone. Thank you.